צאו משם עכשיו, כי אנחנו נפעל בכל מקום ובכל העוצמה.
Balfour Declaration. In the aftermath of World War I, the Ottoman Empire lay in ruins, and from its ashes, Britain emerged. The land was a mosaic, inhabited by a Jewish minority alongside a significant Arab majority, as well as smaller ethnic groups. When Britain, empowered by the Balfour Declaration of 1917, committed to establishing a national home for the Jewish people, the fragile balance began to fracture. Arthur Balfour's pledge resonated deeply with Jewish communities worldwide, echoing their ancestral claims to the land. But for the Palestinian Arabs, the declaration felt like a betrayal. Jewish immigration surged throughout the 1920s and 1930s. Each arrival added weight to the scales of conflict. The streets of Jerusalem buzzed with tension as new faces appeared, each group staking their claim, both feeling as if the land belonged to them and them alone. By 1947, the international community proposed a solution: the partition of Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem standing as an international city, a symbol of shared heritage. The Jewish leadership accepted the plan, envisioning a future of safety and sovereignty. But for the Arab leaders, the proposal felt like a dagger, an imposed division of their homeland. When the UN resolution passed, celebrations erupted among Jewish communities. But the mood was somber across Arab neighborhoods. As tensions escalated into violent clashes, the hopes for coexistence began to crumble. Families were displaced, homes were destroyed, and the land, once a shared space of dreams, became a symbol of division. In the years that followed, both sides would navigate the pain of their past, weaving narratives of suffering, resilience, and the yearning for a place to call home. A city divided. The summer of 1967 was marked by an unsettling calm that belied the storm brewing on the horizon. As the war unfolded, Israel emerged victorious, occupying East Jerusalem, the West Bank, the Golan Heights, Gaza, and the Sinai Peninsula. For many Palestinians, this land was not just territory, it was their home, rich with memories and heritage. But overnight, those connections were threatened. As the war settled, so did the refugees. Over the years, many fled their homes, carrying their lives in tattered bags, seeking refuge in Gaza, the West Bank, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. They became the unseen faces of a displaced population, woven into the fabric of a region in turmoil. The United Nations and various governments, including the United Kingdom, deemed Israel's settlements in the occupied territories illegal, a position Israel firmly rejected. With each new settlement built in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, more families moved in, swelling the population of Jewish residents to over 700,000. Israel declared Jerusalem its undivided capital, a claim supported by only a handful of nations, including the US. In stark contrast, Palestinians continued to assert their claim over East Jerusalem as the future capital of their hoped-for state. The city, once a cradle of shared history, had become a symbol of division. As tensions escalated, skirmishes erupted, and families on both sides faced the daily struggle of living in a conflict zone. The echo of sirens became a part of the soundtrack of life, a constant reminder of the precarious peace that hung by a thread. Gaza, a narrow strip of land sandwiched between Israel and the Mediterranean Sea, but with a short southern border with Egypt. Just 41 kilometers, 25 miles long, and 10 kilometers wide, it has more than 2 million inhabitants and is one of the most densely populated places on Earth. In the wake of the 1948-49 war, Gaza was occupied by Egypt for 19 years. Israel occupied Gaza in the 1967 war and stayed until 2005, during that time building Jewish settlements. Israel withdrew its troops and settlers in 2005, though it retained control over its airspace, shared border, and shoreline. The UN still considers the territory to be occupied by Israel. Refugees. The question of Palestinian refugees loomed large. Generations had passed since families were uprooted, forced to flee their homes. Today, hundreds of thousands lived in camps across the region, their stories woven into the fabric of their new lives in Gaza, the West Bank, and beyond. What would become of those who remained displaced? Compounding the refugee crisis was the contentious issue of Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank. To many Israelis, these settlements represented a rightful return to their ancestral land, a fulfillment of a dream long held. But for Palestinians, each new settlement felt like a further encroachment on their hopes for statehood. Yet the most profound question loomed largest. Should a Palestinian state be created alongside Israel? This prospect, a glimmer of hope for some, was a source of deep anxiety for others. Negotiations. The issues remained unresolved, and every day brought new frustrations. A negotiated peace did seem possible in the early days. A series of secret talks in Norway became the Oslo peace process, forever symbolized by a ceremony on the White House lawn in 1993, presided over by President Bill Clinton. In a historic moment, the Palestinians recognized the State of Israel, and Israel recognized its historical enemy, the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, as the sole representative of the Palestinian people. A self-governing Palestinian authority was set up. Cracks soon appeared, though, with then-opposition leader Benjamin Netanyahu calling Oslo a mortal threat to Israel. The Israelis accelerated their project to settle Jews in the occupied Palestinian territories. The atmosphere in Israel turned ugly, culminating in Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin's assassination by a Jewish extremist on 4 November 1995. In the 2000s, attempts were made to revive the peace process, including in 2003 when a roadmap was devised by world powers with the ultimate goal of a two-state solution, but this was never implemented. Peace efforts finally stalled in 2014 when talks failed between the Israelis and Palestinians in Washington. The most recent peace plan, prepared by the US when Donald Trump was president, was called the Deal of the Century by Prime Minister Netanyahu, but was dismissed by the Palestinians as one-sided and never got off the ground. Hamas won the Palestinians' last elections in 2006 and seized control of Gaza the following year by ousting the rival Fatah movement of West Bank-based President Mahmoud Abbas. Since then, militants in Gaza have fought several wars with Israel, which along with Egypt has maintained a partial blockade on the Strip to isolate Hamas and try to stop attacks, particularly the indiscriminate firing of rockets towards Israeli cities. Palestinians in Gaza say Israel's restrictions and its airstrikes on heavily populated areas amount to collective punishment. This year has been the deadliest on record for Palestinians in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem, the UN says. Palestinians also complain of the restrictions and military actions being carried out there in response to deadly attacks on Israelis. These tensions could have been one of the reasons for Hamas's latest attack, but the militants may also have been seeking to boost their popularity among ordinary Palestinians, including by using hostages to pressure Israel to free some of the estimated 4,500 Palestinians held in its prisons. The US, the European Union, and other Western countries have all condemned the Hamas attack on Israel. The US, Israel's closest ally, has over the years given the Jewish state more than $260 billion in military and economic aid, and has promised additional equipment, air defense missiles, guided bombs, and ammunition. It also sent 2 aircraft carrier strike groups to the eastern Mediterranean to deter Israel's enemies, particularly Lebanon's Hezbollah movement, from opening a second front in the war. Russia and China have both refused to condemn Hamas and say they are maintaining contact with both sides in the conflict. Russian President Vladimir Putin has blamed US policy for the absence of peace in the Middle East. Iran, Israel's arch-enemy, is a key supporter of Hamas, as well as Hezbollah, whose militants have been exchanging fire with Israeli forces almost daily since Hamas's attack. For Israelis, the quest for security and recognition of their statehood often clashes with the Palestinian desire for self-determination and the right to return to their homes. Solution: without genuine dialogue and a commitment to understanding each other's perspectives, the cycle of violence is likely to continue, leaving future generations to grapple with the burdens of a history that demands reconciliation. If you like this video, then give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts about this conflict in the comments section below. Thanks for watching. Until next time, be safe.